Even for those who were expecting Max to win against Justin Gaethje, I highly doubt they expected a sort of finish that he produced, and as a result of that finish, he put himself in a position where he has a ton of different options. So in this video, I'm going to go through the various different pathways that Max has in front of him, and I'm going to make my case as to which one of them makes the most sense for him by far. As always, everything in the video will be timestamped down in the progress bar, and I have to ask that if you enjoy the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more in the future. So let's look at the three most likely options that Max has in front of him to take. The first is for him to drop back down to 145 and challenge Ilia Topuria for the undisputed 145 title. The other option that I've heard some people say is that because he beat Justin Gaethje, who was the #1 contender, that now he is due for a fight with Islam Makhachev. And finally, the third option that I've heard people talk about is for him to wait around and see who wins the match between Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor. So let's go through these three options and I'll give you my points as to why I think it makes sense and why it doesn't. Starting with the Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler fight, most of the people who are pushing for this particular option are thinking of it from the perspective of Max coming to fight Conor McGregor. Now, if that was to happen, it would probably be the biggest payday of Max's life by far. After all, he is the BMF champion now, and you know Conor McGregor would want to be coming for that belt, so it would be a title match. And with the modern version of Max Holloway and the unknown version of Conor McGregor, there's a great chance that Max could actually win that fight. And the reality is, if he does win that fight, there's probably going to be even more options available to him. So on the surface, it looks like that option makes a lot of sense. But the biggest problem with all of it is that there's a lot of variables that would need to line up in order for it to even be possible. Obviously, the Chandler and Conor fight isn't going to happen for just a little over 2 more months. So injuries and other things are still possible that could delay or derail that fight. But if that fight does go forward, you know it's going to be a really aggressive fight, and the chances of somebody getting knocked out in it are very high. Now, if Conor McGregor goes out there and starches Michael Chandler, that would be obviously the best case scenario for this entire thing and pretty much negate all these arguments. But that is a big if, and Michael Chandler will be a very dangerous fight for McGregor. And if Michael Chandler is the one to win, there's really nothing between him and Max to make that exciting or interesting. Not to mention, that fight is going down at 170, and we really don't even know at this point if Conor McGregor will ever even try to make 155 again. Now, I know that Max would probably fight him at 170, but at that point, everything with it is just getting silly. So while this option could work out if a bunch of the variables align, and it would definitely be Max's biggest payday ever, I don't think that it's the next best step for him at this point. So moving on to the next option that some people are talking about, where Max should be next in line to fight Islam Makhachev because he defeated Justin Gaethje, who was the #1 contender. Now, from a standpoint of why this might make sense, Max would be a completely fresh matchup for Islam, and I do think it's something that Islam himself would be very interested in. The other reason it makes sense is that if you want to be as linear as possible, since Justin Gaethje was next in line and Max defeated him handily, there is a strong argument for putting him right into that slot. However, with those couple of arguments for this fight, I think there are more against it. First and foremost, I think Islam is going to be busy for quite a while. He's first going to have to deal with Dustin Poirier in June, and at this point, I don't really see that being a difficult fight for him to get through, but there is always the possibility of injuries and the rest, so you're probably talking at least 5 months from now until Islam would fight a second time. But even if Islam gets through Dustin easily and is ready to fight a second time 5 months from now, he already has Arman Tsarukyan waiting in the wings for him, and that is the most logical fight to make in that division. Now, I fully realize that if some better option comes up, they will definitely push Arman to the side, but I just don't know if Max waiting a couple of months to even get booked for his next fight makes a lot of sense. On top of that, I think a fight with him and Islam doesn't have nearly the excitement as the other two options that we're talking about. And perhaps some of the reason for that is most people are going to think that would be a really bad matchup for Max. Not only is Islam fantastic on the feet, but the grappling that he brings is way better than anything Max has ever been up against. Now, I said after UFC 300 that I would never doubt again what Max Holloway is capable of, and on that basis, I think he could find a way to win, but if he fights to pick against him. And the final risk with this option is that the Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor fight, by the time that it goes down, will have more significance than Max's win simply on recency bias. So it's very possible that either Michael Chandler or Conor McGregor, depending on who wins that fight, could somehow slide themselves into a match with Islam and take that opportunity off the table for Max. So that leaves us with his path to Ilia Topuria, which I believe is by far the best option available. I think the one and only valid argument against this fight is the fact that Max spent some time putting on mass for the Justin Gaethje fight, and it would be a shame if he had to take that off to get back down to 145. But I do think that argument by itself is very thin because Max has already talked about going back down to 145. And outside of that one point, I think everything else makes sense with this fight. First of all the options discussed, it's the only one that's ready and available to be made right now. In every other case, Max would have to wait and find out the result of a fight, but with Ilia, this could be booked tomorrow. Secondly to that, it's an incredibly intriguing stylistic matchup. You have the unstoppable force that is Ilia Topuria versus the immovable object that is Max Holloway. Max brings the height, the speed, and the volume, while Ilia Topuria brings the ferocious power, and he's good everywhere. And while Justin Gaethje is known for having power, he doesn't have that same sort of one-punch KO power that Ilia Topuria has. And while Max took some punches from Justin Gaethje, everybody still wants to know if he can take a flush shot from Ilia Topuria. So from a stylistic perspective and a fun matchup perspective, I don't think there's a better one on this list than this one. The other reasons that this fight makes sense is that the story works out no matter which way it goes. If Ilia Topuria wins, by that point it will be good timing for the Volk rematch, and we'll get to see if Volk can figure out the puzzle that he couldn't figure out the first time. And if Ilia wins that rematch as well, after taking some of the star power from Max Holloway, Ilia could end up as the biggest star on the entire UFC roster. But if Max wins, that will be his opportunity to get that fourth match with Volk and possibly end that rivalry with him being the one to win last. And at that point, he would have virtually any opportunity he wants in the company available to him. So just to summarize all this up, when you look at the different pathways that are available to Max, you can certainly make arguments for all of them, but I think the Ilia Topuria match is the only one that really makes sense and has a lot of things supporting it. But that's just my opinion. What do you think about it? Let me know down in the comments whether you prefer him to fight Ilia or you have something else in mind. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That really helps me out and I would appreciate it. Thank you for watching. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your day and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.